I'm just going to tell you a little bit about the Grand Families and Kinship Support Network for those of you who do not know. We are a National Technical Assistance Center running cooperation with the Administration for Community Living. And our mandate is really to serve those who serve kinship families. And by kinship families and grand families, we use those two terms interchangeably to mean grandparents, other relatives, and close family friends who raise children when can't. So both terms are inclusive for us. We host webinars like this one often. We also provide no-cost individual assistance. So if you have any kind of questions, really running the gamut of these 8 systems and how they impact kin, we are here to get you an answer, because we have a whole cadre of subject matter experts and 5 national partners with whom we do this work. We are also intensively involved in 3 jurisdictions that applied and competed for that opportunity. And it's been a real pleasure to work with Idaho and San Diego County and the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin. And then at the bottom of this slide, you'll see our website address, and we have all kinds of original resources that we've created over the 4.5 years that we've been operating, a little less than 4.5 years. So all kinds of practical tools, including a Kinship Navigator list, and a couple of the federal funding opportunities, which we'll drop in the chat at some point during the webinar. So it's my pleasure on the next slide to introduce very briefly our presenters, and I welcome them to share more about themselves as they speak. But we're very pleased. This is a collaborative that has been ongoing for 5 years. I had the privilege of working with this group when it first launched, and it's been a collaborative between these states, also Vermont, Casey Family Programs, the University of Washington, and Dr. Angelique Day, and those of us here at Generations United have been involved in what's called this Kinship Navigator Collaborative, which is really a multi-state effort to build and evaluate a Kinship Navigator model. And you are going to learn more about it and how it's implemented in these 3 states today. So without further ado, I will turn it over to whoever is the first speaker. And I have to say, I'm not quite sure of that. So please just start speaking. And thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you. I'll start, and then Travis, I'll let you lead on right after this and talk about your state. We're very thankful to have all of you on here today. We just wanted to share what our collaborative has done over the last 5 years, the program that we have developed and grown, and then how we've adapted it to the very rural natures of our states. So, Travis, I'll let you take over that first slide.
Appreciate that, Sandra.
Yeah.
Hello, folks. Thank you for being with us today. Just to kind of, before I start, or I guess just to dive right in to these models, we wanted to really look at Maine. And so for the past about 27 years, AFFM, what we like to refer to ourselves, has provided peer navigation and support groups in close partnership with the Maine Office of Child and Family Services. However, a substantial transformation for our organization occurred between 2019 and 2021. During that window, AFM didn't just kind of continue to maintain status quo, in large part due to the collaborative effort with the KNC. So we really strategically leveraged a variety of funding streams, including private grants, congressional direct spending grant, and then also the Title 4B Navigator funds. And this really wouldn't have been possible if it wasn't for a large advocacy effort that was done in those years prior to, leading up to it, by one of our founding members, Bet Hoxie, who's also with us today. And so she and several others really laid that foundation for us to be able to have, kinship awareness in the state of Maine and also get those partnerships. But it really wasn't just about the funds. It was about really increasing the ability to build more of a modern infrastructure. AFFM here in Maine, added a professional case management and dedicated evaluation team. We also really pivoted our data collection to more of an electronic data system and have more automations built into it. Right now, we are currently a program that is led by a full-time program manager, supported by 5 navigators. And in 2021, like I mentioned, we joined the multi-state Kinship Navigator Collaborative, really providing an additional blueprint as how a long-standing organization can adapt and mold to meet some of the new federal guidelines. And so we really look forward to our time with you all today and hopefully dive a little bit deeper into how our states and programs have worked together within the KNC to provide a model for other navigator programs. And I will turn it over to Montana's.
Hi, everyone. My name's Peyton Vining. I am the program manager over for the Montana Kinship Navigator program in partnership with all of these other wonderful panelists today. But yeah, more about the Montana program, how we started, where we're at now. Similar to Travis, our program began in 2002 in Montana, and at the time it was called Grandparents Raising Grandchildren. For the 18 years prior to joining the KNC and moving to evaluation, we served as support groups across the state and offered, the warm line information and referrals. So that ran for, 18 plus years serving, primarily grandparents raising grandchildren. So Montana was able to adapt a grand families program pretty early on. And so we were very fortunate to that. Similarly, again, to Travis, we rebranded in 2021 using the Title 4B Navigator funds, got an evaluation team, and added that case management service, which has been such a huge success in our state, moving from support groups and information to a fully operative program with that case management service. Currently in the Montana program, we have 1 full-time program manager and lead navigator. And we also operate out of Montana State University Extension. So we are able to hire 1 part-time graduate research assistant and or intern every year. They work 10 to 12 hours a week, supporting that case management that we added, supporting some education efforts, and just working with our families all around. So currently that is the capacity in Montana that we are working with. And then again, of course, we joined that Kinship Navigator Collaborative in 2021, which has been a huge help leading to creating our manuals and, ultimately being able to be here today to talk to all of you about, the successes of our program and how we got to where we are today and just operating as a dual state program. So that is the basis of the Montana program and where we are at today.
Next, please. Again, Chandra Ortiz. I am with Kinship Connections of Wyoming. I have worked in the field of at-risk youth and families for over 29 years now, and I have been with Kinship Connections since we started. Very much opposite of what Travis and Peyton have had in their states. Wyoming didn't have a Kinship Navigator program. And so when the Families First dollars came out in the Title 4B Navigator funds, we decided to utilize that funding, recognizing how important it was to create a Navigator program in our state and serve those families. And so we started developing the program in 2019. We piloted what we had developed in 2020 in Natrona and Laramie counties, which are our 2 biggest counties with the greatest number of grandparents raising grandchildren. One of the benefits that we had starting our program sort of from the ground up is we implemented case management into our program as well as information and referral. So much different than Travis and Peyton's programs. They had to then start implementing case management and trying to figure out how to utilize that service. When Wyoming just sort of did it from the start and we kind of went from there. Very much like the rest of these programs, we are small. We have one program manager, one kinship navigator, and we are actually a program of Wyoming 211. So we utilize their database, so we have access to all of that, and we are a company under Wyoming 211. And again, we all joined in 2021, the Kinship Navigator Collaborative, in hopes to build a program that would be recognized by the Federal Clearinghouse. So it's been very beneficial for all of us. Thank you. Next.
So the one of the things that we really wanted to talk about was around the purpose and benefits of the KNC. And so it's really about like, the why behind the collaborative, which is really rooted in a kin first culture. We believe fundamentally that all children deserve to grow up in a safe and familiar families. Our mission really was to develop a robust program model that serves these families regardless of their involvement in formal child welfare systems, or sometimes is what we may say, informal, is some of the things that we used to use as language and are kind of moving away from it. But just to reference that, uh, by forming the collaborative, we achieved three primary benefits. One of those was around community capacity. Uh, we link families with vital resources, believing kin families deserve support, whether or not they are part of the formal child welfare system. Number two was really around the standardization. We've brought together states and tribes to agree on common program elements. We managed this through the program group and focused on implementation. And then we also formed an evaluation group that was focused on high quality research. And then the third thing I would like to highlight was around sustainable funding. We knew going into it that we really needed to remain eligible for ongoing federal support. That was kind of one of the driving forces to being a part of it, was like, how can we get those federal funds, right? How can we become an evidence-based program? And so knowing that we needed to meet those rigorous standards of promising or well supported within the Title 4E clearinghouse was one of the kind of pieces that we're all shooting for. In the meantime, still trying to figure out, how can we keep going here and now. Our collaborative made this possible to submit, or to get ready to submit, as we're all in that process right now, by pooling our data and leveraging national partners like Casey Family Programs and Generations United, University of Washington, and then all of us, which we'll talk a little bit more about, really worked with what we had within our state and the resources to be able to make that happen, and ultimately really trying to build a model that strengthens kids' families by making sure that they have the tools to thrive.
And I think one thing that's really important to mention here too is we were very intentional. One, we were very fortunate to have Generations United, Casey Family Programs, and Angelique Day's expertise behind all of this, along with all of us in our Navigator programs. But one thing we were really intentional about is making sure that we had people with lived experience helping us design and guide this model, because it's, as we all work in these fields, it's easy for us to say what should be in a program manual and what should be in a program design, but having some people and individuals with lived experience helping guide that was really beneficial. Okay.
I just wanted to add one more thing too. I think, from the beginning, I started with us in the beginning of all of this. It felt like we were alone on this island and we had no idea what we're doing. The Federal Clearinghouse sounded like this crazy, like far off, like entity. And the Navigator Collaborative really gave us like a light in the darkness and a navigation for our navigating programs. Just really helped us kind of get on track and gave us a clear picture of how to move forward, which was just very helpful. And then next slide, please. Thank you. So I'm Gabby. I am the Kinship Navigator in Wyoming, and I have a background in child welfare in Colorado and Wyoming. And then I'm going to just go over what our program model looks like. Every family is different. We try to meet the needs of every family, but this is our guide for what our program model looks like. So in the center, we have our families, our caregivers, and our children. That is the root of what we do is, and the most important part of what we do and why we do everything, right? And so first off, we have outreach, information, and referral. So those are those clients we're giving information referral for all of the resources in their areas. And we really try hard to do a lot of outreach. We'll share a little bit more about what that outreach looked like in our state specifically, but really trying to get into our Department of Family Services, child welfare agencies, benefits offices, um, working with CASA programs, GALs. Every state's different, but really trying to get into those important places where families are being reached every day. And then we have our needs assessment, which we all follow a same needs assessment, and it goes through like a very intensive assessment to figure out what that family is really needing. They might have a couple issues that they're struggling with, and they might bring that up, but this assessment goes through everything, so it helps us kind of have a bigger picture of what that family really needs. And they might not think about something, but we might be able to come up with, hey, it looks like this is an area you're struggling. This looks like something you might really benefit from. And then we do that case management, which is this intensive work with the family, setting goals, finding out where they want to be in a couple months, what really is important to you and your family at this time, and let's make a game plan and get there together. We also offer caregiver education. In Wyoming, Montana, and Maine, we partner with the National Training Development Center in TDC. And we're all trained in that curriculum, and we offer that quarterly in our states, which has just been very beneficial for, I think, our programs as a whole and for our caregivers. We also in Wyoming have partnered with the Department of Family Services and offer that as a formal training with them in partnership. We have our peer-to-peer support group, which is my favorite part of our programming. I just love to watch our kinship caregivers connect with each other, realize they're not alone, and that other people are going through what they're going through. They've been where they've been before, and they can help them navigate that too. Because as much as I want to save the world and help people as much as I can, I haven't been there. And so I love to watch people connect with each other and support one another through their journeys. And then we also offer urgent needs and concrete goods. So we partner with Comfort Cases. So that is a backpack that offers like a blanket, a book, pajamas, socks, hygiene items for our children in our program. We offer that to all case management families. If they want it, they can have it. If they don't have to. We have other concrete goods such as pull-ups, wipes. Um, I've bought comforters, clothing, whatever they may need, we try to get it for them. And then we also have some emergency financial assistance for families in need. A lot of times we've helped with caregiver guardianship filing fees is one that we do a lot in our state. There might be situations where they need help with rent or utilities, and if we can't find resources in our area, we utilize that emergency funding source. And then I kind of talked about this earlier, but our partnerships with kinship families and organizations are so important. We'll talk a little bit more about the rural nature of our states, but that just like boots on the ground connections and partnerships, I would say is one of the biggest keys to our success in our state specifically.
And then the other
Anybody
thing,
feel free to add on.
I just think I'd like to add that we all have advisory councils in each one of our states, and that's a group of individuals, caregivers, coalition leaders, legislators, lived experience individuals, both children and adults. And the reason that we have that group is so we meet with them quarterly, and that really is so that they can give us feedback and assist us in any way to move our program forward and be more relevant in our space. So that's another really important group that we have as part of our partnership.
Yes, thank
Yeah,
you.
and I think the importance of why we wanted to show this wheel right away was this wheel is the bread and butter to everything that we do. Our program was founded and operates on this wheel. So when we started development and implementation in our states, this was the baseline. This is on every piece of documentation we have. This is on every manual that we will be submitting to the clearinghouse. This was our foundation to the program. So this, every point on this wheel was, we need to hit this mark. We need to make sure the language is there. We need to make sure that we are implementing it how it says on that wheel. So I think the importance of why we are showing this right away is that this was our basis. This is how we started our program, and this is how we continue to operate and will continue to operate, is hitting every aspect of this program model.
Thank you. Next.
All right. Um, our lovely timeline. I didn't think we would ever get to the point where we are now. When we first started the journey, and I think, for most of our programs, we, started out and it was kind of like this perfect catalyst, I guess, that came together all at the right time. Because looking back on it, all three of our programs were starting to get the funding and get the interest and more motivation, I guess, and ability to enroll into the KNC collaborative. And so, though it says we started in 2021, for most of us, I think it started a few years, if not several years prior to it. But it came together in 2021, and our initial time frame was pretty, I guess, ambitious, I will say. And so, thanks to our evaluators who were a part of it, who um, some of our evaluators aren't on here today, but they're like, the research side and some of these other things are going to take a little bit longer than I think you guys quite realize. And so we appreciated the grace of our leading partners with Generations United and Casey Family Services, and also University of Washington. And so they were gracious to it and allowed us to be a little more fluid, and we had to push it back a few different times. But we are, we're getting there, and definitely still on track to meet that end date in June of 2026. I know some of this lettering is a little bit small, but I'm sure the slides will be shared so folks can see it. But one of the big milestones was just after, in that May to December timeframe, when we're finalizing all of our case management cases and getting our evaluations in. And it was just like this kind of breath of fresh air. Yeah, especially on the program side of things. Now we're at the point where a lot of our stuff is done with evaluation, but really being there every step of the way with this group was just reassuring and helped that, okay, you can do it. It seemed like when one of our states would get to a milestone, sometimes it was kind of a little discouraging, like, geez, I don't know if we'll get there. But then the group was encouraging one another to do it. And I think we took turns on sharing numbers, and 1 month Maine's case management numbers would be really high. And then here comes Wyoming and Montana and kind of, elevating the bar a little bit. So it was nice to have that collaboration. And thanks to the KNC for that piece.
I think one thing that we learned early on, because if we're honest, I think the very first timeline that ever came out ended in like 2025 or 2024. We thought it was going to be a 3-year journey. We all soon realized very quickly that evaluation takes a lot longer than any of us had anticipated. And enrolling the correct number of caregivers into the study takes a lot more time. And so Generations United was and our evaluation team was they were very generous with us, like letting us continue to extend this flexible timeline. So if I can say anything from just this display, if you are in the process right now of having your programs evaluated, or you're looking at evaluating a program, give yourself some grace, because this timeline is not definite. It has ebbed and flowed with us over the years. For sure. Next.
So the big thing, we wanted to talk about, Montana and Wyoming is a dual program. We are the only dual state program, in the United States right now. And I think that's a big thing that we've never thought about as a partnership, but that we have been getting a lot of questions and praise about. So, a lot of things are, how do you guys do it? How did you start, and why did you do it? The main reason was we had to hit that specific number, like you saw in that timeline before, of enrolling families in our evaluation. Well, Montana and Wyoming are both very large, vast rural states, and we could sit here and talk about the definition of rural, but we just are very rural states. Montana is the fourth largest state. We have more cows than we have people. So, thinking about how the timeline of how to reach those numbers, it would have been another 5 to 6 years for each state to do it individually. So that's why we thought, let's put Montana and Wyoming together. Let's run the exact same identical program in 2 states, and we will collect that evaluation. We will enroll those families faster, and then we will submit to the clearinghouse as a dual state program. So in the clearinghouse approval, there's so many requirements. And so Montana and Wyoming were like, let's come together, let's join forces, let's do this dual state evaluation. And we started from day dot running the same exact program in each state. And how did we do it? It's not easy, but we did it. It's weekly meetings. Me and Chandra and Gabby, we meet every week, every other week. And then, of course, we'll talk about later our evaluation. We each have our own evaluation teams. Same thing. Every other week, we're meeting with our evaluation teams. They're meeting with each other. It is constant communication. It is making sure that everything is the same. We are doing everything right. We are following the rules. We're not straying off. And then, of course, it's making sure our services and asking questions. It really is a partnership more than it is a dual state evaluation. We have become such good friends and have gotten closer because of this, but we knew we wouldn't be able to do it alone. So we had this great opportunity to do it together, which has been such a great success, and coming from rural states, we both are serving all of our states. We're not just serving certain counties, we are statewide programs. So we are serving all of our counties, and we are serving all of our tribal nations as well. In addition to that, one of the things that when we submit to the clearinghouse, no other program has done before either, is that we are serving both formal families, so families that are involved in the child welfare system, and informal caregivers, which has not been done and submitted to a clearinghouse. So families that have no involvement in child welfare system are coming to us outside of any of that involvement. So we're one of the first programs to be able to submit under that light as well. So that's just been amazing to work with, and we're reaching so many more caregivers when you open up what the definition of kinship is, and are reaching outside of just the child welfare system as well, and providing the same services across both families. So just running the same program, like I said, I'm reiterating it, but the weekly meetings, Chandra and I have sat down for hours and hours and hours going over program manuals. Are we doing this right? Like Gabby said, we do a dual state caregiver education. We just are serving families on a different level because of how wide and far our states reaches, and the lack of resources that we have in our states because of our rurality. We've had to brainstorm what services we can provide families. And, the big one, of course, too, is our partnerships in these rural states, connecting with different programs, connecting with the state itself. So starting this, it was a lot of sitting down with each other, a lot of hours going over, making sure that all of our things look the same. Chandra and I have the same exact Excel documents that are identical for tracking, all of our information across the states, and of course the evaluation side of it too. So it's been a long time, success, but that is why we initially joined forces, was because we would never feasibly reach, number one, the participation numbers we needed, and number two, because it's something that hasn't been done yet, and we wanted to show other programs that it is possible and you can serve kinship families in rural states across America under a dual state evaluation.
Appreciate that. Next. And I think one of the things that Peyton mentioned is really the reason that we thought to come together as a combined study was it gave us the ability to compete with states with larger populations and then compete with that funding. And this slide just really shows why it made sense for Montana and Wyoming in particular, is our demographics are almost identical. If we had very different demographics, I don't know that it would have been the best partnership. But when you look at the number, we have both information and referral clients as well as case management. But when you look at the age of them, the range of them, the ethnicity, the average number of kids, it helped us make sense that we were doing the right thing. Next. I guess we can all take on this one. Sorry. Gabby had mentioned too that outreach to us and in our rural states, outreach was the most beneficial for us. One of the things that we did, all of us in all three of our states went and did statewide trips. We went and we traveled to the Department of Family Services, to public health, to WIC offices. We did Kinship 101s to child protection teams, anybody we could get in front of. We sat at tabling events, whatever we could do to get in front of people. With the rural nature of all of our states, people feel close to each other. And it's not like going into a big city where people are walking by and they don't know you. These are people that we interact with on a daily basis. And so that was one of the most beneficial things for us to do. We had to, because we built our program from the ground up, we had to make very intentional efforts with the Department of Family Services in our state for them to recognize, one, what we were doing, what we were building, and how we could help them. And we cultivated that relationship for a number of years. And as it is now, and as they've seen what we're doing, how we're helping families, in that we can actually help them do some of their work by connecting those families to resources and assisting them in person, they have now become our number one referral service. So I think the partnerships, especially with the states, are really, really important.
And I think in Wyoming too, sorry, Peyton.
No, you're okay.
It's just that spread out, right? Exactly what Peyton said earlier. We are serving the entire state. So we just did a presentation with somebody that's like 4 or 5 hours away from us this morning. And it's hard, right? Like we originally would do these Kinship 101s, which we still utilize and we still do. But I cannot tell you enough how important it was to get there face to face with these people, to sit down. Because Wyoming's old school, I think Montana's similar. Like they want to trust you. They want to know what you say is what you're going to do, and they want to see you do it. And now we've been here long enough that what we've said, we are doing, and they are starting to trust us. And that has been huge for our success.
Yeah, and I really want to touch on the partnerships, because that is one of, I think, the most important pieces to building a Kinship Navigator program is the partnerships you have. And Montana, and Travis, chime in about your experience as well. Because we were a program that was established already, our connection with our child and family services in the state of Montana was already great. So when we started this Kinship Navigator evaluation process, we had a great relationship with the state, and they are still our highest referrals. So we have a great relationship. We are in constant communication. We've never had any disruptions with the state partnerships, but I know that's not always the case in some situations. There is a trust factor and trying to figure out what the program is actually doing. But on a Montana side, Travis, I think you guys were similar, was that we had a great relationship with the state and it worked. Similarly, you know, in Montana, we have multiple 12 reservations that we have. So serving a high population of tribes, another thing was those partnerships with the tribe comes with trust building and honesty. And like Gabby said, it's a lot of face-to-face connection. You can call somebody on the phone as much as you want, but to create that trust, especially in those tribal nations, they want to talk to you face to face. And, you know, it's outside of the state and the tribal partnerships as well. You know, we have a lot of nonprofit partnerships, we have a lot of medical partnerships, school partnerships. We are constantly expanding who our partners are, but our program would not be as well rounded as we are without those partnerships. You can do only so much by yourself, but it's creating those partnerships and trust with other programs in the state. Number one, to help you, and number two, ultimately to help families. There's so many programs and resources out there that you can connect with and collaborate on to serve these, you know, families. But it really does come down to starting those partnerships and how you can continue to grow off that when you're thinking about a navigator program.
Yeah, one of the things that we're very fortunate with our state partnership is that on a monthly basis, we get a listing from them of any child that has come into their custody and they've placed with a kinship caregiver. So we've been able to, you know, within a relatively short time frame, reach out to those kinship caregivers and, you know, inform them of our services and talk about, you know, navigation support. One of the areas that was coming about right when we joined the KNC was we actually had received a grant through the Brookdale Foundation, and it was targeted towards engagement with school systems. And so something that kind of came out of that also fed really nicely into the KNC work was doing like similar to what was mentioned earlier around Kinship 101. And we were able to take a very similar kind of training or outreach effort and partner with schools. And we even had a school offered as an adult ed class, so we could inform, you know, whether it's caregivers or just general public about kinship care, that this is the thing, right? Putting a name to it. There's still a lot of folks out there that still don't understand what is kinship. And so yeah, putting the boots to the ground is, as Gabby mentioned, a big piece is the caregivers aren't necessarily going to come to us as navigator programs. We really got to go to them, as Peyton highlight, with the tribal communities. So, you know, going to where they are, schools, a lot of children are attending schools. So getting into those, maybe it's connecting, might not be with a school board or you know, any kind of assembly, but maybe there's a PTA or PTO group, boosters clubs, things like that are interested, that might be able to at least spread the word, if not support in other ways.
Great point. Another lesson we learned really early on was the importance of fidelity. It especially important to our evaluation team. We have fidelity forms that we use. So every single week we are on the phone or we are on Zoom and we are going through every single client that is enrolled in our study. So we say, did they have their 3-week checkup? Do we do a 3-month checkup? What is their status? Is their goal still the same? Has it changed? Are they stopping navigation services? I think as a programmatic team, before we did our work with our kinship clients, but we didn't recognize or realize how important the documentation and entering the stuff into the database was to maintain the fidelity of the program. That, as the wheel states, this is the program that we're implementing. And so we learned very, very early on that we needed to have weekly meetings and go through every single part of that fidelity to make sure that we were, again, implementing what we said we were going to implement as programs. And just going down into client surveys, I think we also recognize that these clients are working at times with multiple children in times of crisis. And so one of the things that we needed to do in order to have our program evaluated is we needed to receive client surveys. And so we recognize that if a survey comes in the mail, they look at it, the last thing that's probably on their mind is, let me fill this survey out for this program. And right now I'm trying to feed this child, I'm trying to figure out new clothing, I'm trying to make sure they're staying in school. And so that sort of fell on the back burner. And so we had to learn as navigators how to use different techniques. It wasn't just sending it in the mail. Maybe it was then 2 weeks later texting them. Then maybe it was sending it via email. And at a point, I feel like we were probably bothering them because we were continuing to try to pass them to get that back. But it was also really important for our program. And we recognized that their feedback was what we needed in order to let the Federal Clearinghouse know that we had a program that was actually helping and assisting the families in our state. And we even got down to something as simple as, instead of sending it in a programmatic envelope, we started using colored envelopes that looked more like birthday cards or holiday cards, and writing, instead of putting a stamp on there, writing their name right. That way it didn't get lost in their pile of mail that was delivered to their house. And I think one thing that was really critical that we hadn't thought about, I think most of our programs, when we first talked about having our programs evaluated, was in order to get these caregivers to send these surveys back, we had to provide them with incentives. And so we send out gift cards. We sent out gift cards just for them saying, yes, we will enroll in this evaluation. We sent them a gift card when they completed that first survey, and we sent them another gift card when they completed that second survey. And the total amount for our programs sending out these surveys was $150 in total. And so that was one thing that we realized, having started this, that we didn't budget for. And so we had to get creative and talk to different funding agencies that would also help pay for those incentives. If we want the information back, then we have to give them something to make it worth their time to give back. So those are some of the things that we learned while we were flying this plane as we were building it.
Certainly,
Yes.
one of the big pieces around fidelity, just to touch on that piece, for Maine, and I think Peyton can relate to this one. When we were a long-standing program, right? So we're used to doing things a certain way, and we were kind of doing it as information and referral services, or services as usual, which we'd often refer to. When it came time to formalizing the case management, and that fidelity tracking that we had became very important, because we were used to having those, I wouldn't say necessarily one and dones, but we've had a lot more onus on the family to follow up. And so getting our staff that have been working or being a part of the organization for, whether, even if it was 3 or 4 years to 15 or 20 years, okay, now we have this new way, right? So that fidelity tracking tool for us, especially in the state of Maine, was very important. And so we built it right into our data system. We were very fortunate to have some of that funding that I mentioned earlier, to send automated reminders and schedule automated tasks within a calendar for our staff, so that way they'd be reminded of, oh yeah, I need to follow up. I need to follow up on this point. So those were just some different ways that we tried to monitor the fidelity and help stay within the model.
So we'll just touch briefly, again, with the support from the KNC and Generations United. We were so graciously visited by Melissa and her team. Chandra and the previous program manager applied for the exemplary status program several years ago, and we were so graciously awarded with the exemplary status. And for us, as we talked about earlier, the 5-year timeline, when you start thinking about 5 years, like 5 years from now, it's going to be 2031. We're not even in the 20s anymore. It sounds like a lot, and it's really easy to get defeated when thinking about 5 years from now and working towards that. So applying for this exemplary status, and so graciously, like I said, receiving this was such a huge milestone in our long 5-year run. It reminded us what we are working towards. It gave us that gold star boost that, man, we are a great program. We're doing what we said we are going to do. We are helping families, and now we are being nationally recognized for helping these families. So receiving this exemplary status, like I said, it was a great break in that 5 year of something new to work towards, something that we received. And now we get to brag about it to our funders, to our state partners, to our national partners. We get to say we are exemplary status recognized. And we have this gold star now by our name to continue to show off what our programs have done up to this time being. So we wanted to throw it in there. The link is there. Go check out our article, see what we did to receive that exemplary status, and what that looks like and what that process looks like too. But we wanted to throw it in there to show, break up that timeline, shoot for another goal, write papers, apply for, statuses. So this was just such a great honor that we were able to receive this several years ago to keep working towards our final goal that we're at now. Next.
So here, this is the KNC. This is what we have developed. These are the 4 things that we are measuring in our evaluation. It's child safety, it's permanent placement permanency, caregiver well-being, and access to resources. So that client survey that I talked about, in that survey, it addresses these specific topics for our evaluation team. And then I just wanted to mention again that Montana and Wyoming is the first ever quasi-experimental evaluation, and both Montana State University and the University of Wyoming evaluators are incredible to work with. They have partnered, as well as our programs have partnered together, and they keep us in the loop on everything they're doing. So it's been a really great partnership between the two. Next.
So you've heard us talk a lot about the evaluation. Travis, go
ahead, Peyton. My bad.
No, you're okay. And you're probably thinking, what are they evaluating? Why are they evaluating? What is this evaluation? The first thing I want to say when we talk about evaluation, when our program started, one of the first things that we did was we found an evaluation team. We knew to be able to submit this to the federal clearinghouse, we needed evaluators. So identifying who your evaluators are going to be in your evaluation team right away has been a huge success in us being able to submit to the clearinghouse. And luckily, we had an evaluation team at Montana State University and Wyoming. I know you guys had your evaluator is from the University of Wyoming. So we had already identified evaluators that we knew were going to be on our team. So that was already a huge jump. If you identify evaluators later, it can be a little bit of struggle depending on your situation, but we already had that. And Travis, I know you had that as well, and touch on that. But what our evaluation was looking at was kinship placements are increasingly preferred. We all know that. We want the kids with the family. We know they're safer and better with that. So we were able to look at that. And other funding mitigations. And to be able to be eligible for the federal funds, we were required to do this evaluation, thus having their own evaluation teams. Similarly, we will submit a program manual, and the evaluation has their own, and they're in their critical time point right now where they're evaluating the data. And once again, the importance of having people that know what they're doing when they're looking at data and know how to look at data. I'm not a data person, so that would not have been a great position for me. But just, again, thinking about how important our evaluation is, when we did this program, we had, like Chandra said, 2 surveys that we sent out after all said and done, evaluating our services, and similarly, our needs assessment, just a bunch of, the forms and paperwork that we needed to be able to do this evaluation. And Travis, go ahead and talk about your evaluation team as well.
No, that's all right. I was just one of the things, we were fortunate that in Maine, we had a long-standing relationship with our evaluation team. And I think having someone that really does understand the population really benefited us. So, for those that are looking to get into it, that's just something really would echo and recommend, is making sure that you work with someone that's very familiar with it. We had about 20 years of working with University of Maine Center on Aging, and they had done many other projects along that way that were really geared towards kinship care and helping support their families. So it was just nice when you have that kind of clear understanding. And as we were going through this project too, we found out that even some of our evaluators, kinship caregiving impacted their families in one way or another too. So they, you know, connected on a whole nother level, which was great.
Next. Again, this is just what we are evaluating. The equivalent comparison groups, we had our age, race, socioeconomical status, and the child age. And then one of the things that was most important that we had recognized and that what the University of Washington stated was very important to the Federal Clearinghouse is that we provided our program services to 75% or greater fidelity, which means that we provided the program the way that we said we were. So if we said we were doing a 3-week contact and a family needs assessment and a caregiver stress scale and these follow-ups and goal setting, we made sure when we met on those weekly bases that we were fulfilling everything that our program said, that we were offering support groups, that we were offering education, that we had a advisory council that was meeting, that we had the people identified that we wanted on our advisory council on our advisory council. And so that's what the service delivery fidelity means. And then again, these are just the outcomes for our participants, the well-being of the caregiver, their ability to access services, and then stability and safety of those children in those homes. Next. Fireworks.
So the final goal, you know, what we're working towards right now is that completed program manual, which, like I said, to be able to do a dual statement, Chandra and I met for hours and hours and sat down and read it 100 times and put it all together. So that's one of the big thing. The 250 participants, like I said, wouldn't be able to do by ourselves. Us doing the dual state evaluation with that 75% fidelity or higher. And then what we're working towards now, obviously, is that program submission. So programmatically, we've got what we've got to do, and now it's the evaluation side of things that is collecting the data, cleaning it, and merging the data between the two states, putting together the final program evaluation manual, and then submitting to the Federal Clearinghouse with the goal of receiving a rating high enough to be able to get funding sustainable to continue to improve our program, increase capacity in our program, hire more people, having more money to support families. So that's the goal, you know, and I think that's the goal for everybody, is that we want to submit to the Federal Clearinghouse with high rating and just to be able to continue to support these kinship families for a long time.
Next. This is just a couple comments on the client surveys. I'm not going to read them all through to you. We've got lots and lots of comments, but we just wanted to show you one of our families and some of the things that they have said about our programs and the way that we have had them implemented. And then if we just go to the next slide really quick, this is something that I think if you all are thinking about submitting to the clearinghouse, if you want to come up with programs, what does your state look like? What's your current program look like? What are some of those demographics? Just sort of think outside the box. Could you do some of the things that we've done and develop a team that creates a program manual? Or when we get our rating, utilize and implement that and then get an evaluation team? Is there a way that you can combine counties, combine states, combine different cities? You know, this is just a couple questions to ask yourself when thinking about wanting to either create, build, or evaluate the programs that you have in your communities. And now I think next slide, just Q&A, but Anna, do you want to take over and tell them how they're going to do that?
Yeah. Thank you so much, all of you, for sharing your wisdom and your experiences with the Kinship Navigator Collaborative. I miss working with y'all. We are going to, at the top of the hour, leave here and, oh, sorry, I guess my video was off. We are going to leave here and join a Zoom meeting where we can have a little more interactive Q&A. So Mari from our staff is going to drop that into the chat so you can see it. In the meantime, we go to the next slide. I will tell you about our next webinar. We hope you can join us for that, learning about kinship peer liaisons, kind of a mentorship um, program. And then on the next slide, please. Please stay connected with us here at the network. You can request, as we've pointed out, no cost assistance at any time. And we're going to sign you all up for our newsletter if you're not signed up already. It's just a monthly newsletter that comes into your inbox with all things kinship. But if you already, if you'd rather not receive it, just let us know. And then, of course, our LinkedIn page.